everybody, my name is Wynn, and welcome to another video by the Entropy system. In our journey to becoming functionally multiple, the single most important thing, the foundation to any success we have, is strong system communication. We've made videos in the past talking about various ways that we've built communication between each other, things that worked for us, things that didn't, but I've never really sat down and talked about the whole journey all at once. Where we started, how long it took to establish good communication, how different it was between all the various alters. And so I wanted to go over that journey with you guys today. Because just hearing little tidbits of when we're successful might be discouraging to someone who's struggling with system communication, because all we're sharing are the successes. And our journey was not composed of just successes. I'm going to be the one telling this story from my perspective because I was basically the last one included in system communication. As the long-term host, I also held the job of not knowing we were a system. So while I navigated life just thinking it was just me and that there was nobody else in my head, they were all, at least on some level, talking to each other. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s and in college that honestly communication went from 0 to 60 really fast. Uncomfortably fast. Not good communication, but communication and awareness of my system. The first memory that I have of definite alter communication is of Mistletoe. Mistletoe is an alter who has long since fused, but she was basically a middle-aged woman, but also a fairy. Big old butterfly wings. When she fronted this one time while I was driving to university, I was stunned because all of a sudden I felt like a fairy. I can't describe to you what it feels like to suddenly feel like a fairy, but that is what it felt like. I was very concerned and I panicked and I was like, I need to text my husband right now and let him know what's happening. But the thing is, my body didn't respond to me thinking, hey body, move, pick up the phone. It was on a delay, and it was like I was thinking these things and urging my body to do these actions, and somebody inside, much calmer than me, would say, okay, I can do that for you, and then do the thing that I was trying to do initially. I didn't know at the time that this was an alter. This is right before my therapist and I found out I had DID. But that was the first moment that I couldn't just explain away as, oh, I'm in a different mood, or, oh, I'm so forgetful, or, you know, all the other ways that I logicked away other alters fronting or me missing time or whatever. This was the first, yes, something weird is happening. And over the next few weeks, I started to gain more awareness of more alters. And with every single alter that I met or became aware of, my communication level with them was different with every single one. After Mistletoe, the next alter I became aware of was Daniel. With Daniel, communication was easy, just instantly. He let himself be known to me and we could just talk. I didn't actively pursue communication with Daniel right away because this was still in the maybe we have DID, maybe we don't phase. And because there was really no memory gaps between he and I, and whenever he was fronting, I was so close to the front that it didn't completely feel like I had lost control of the body. I thought maybe this is gender fluidity or that there was some other explanation. And with my therapist's encouragement, I pursued other things that this might be. She even sent me resources on people talking about their gender fluidity to see if it fit what I was feeling. Of course, at some point I realized that me but male was also very different in temperament, had different likes and dislikes and fears. It was definitely more than gender that changed. Once I accepted him as an alter, we were able to switch on purpose sometimes, like coordinated switching, basically right away. We were able to communicate back and forth, not incredibly clearly, like not like I'm talking to you with long strings of words, but we could still send each other short messages. There was really no work needed on my part to be able to communicate with Daniel. The next alter that I met was Michelle. Michelle is a child alter, a little, and she was not nearly as easy to reach as Daniel was. She felt very distant, and I couldn't really send words to her or hear words from her. It was more just basic images and emotional bumps that I would feel when I tried to reach out to her. Images are what came through most strongly, and so when I was first becoming aware of her, I drew her, which here is my drawing of her. She was very clearly emotionally unwell. I pictured her as crying and in this big oversized ratty shirt and just generally looking afraid. From Michelle, I mainly got two emotions, which was fear and a longing to be cared for. Around this time, I also met Kit, who was another fairy alter, but she was more of like a teenage scene girl, too cool to care type person. I don't remember my first interactions with Kit at all. I can't tell you when I met her. I can't tell you how good our communication or bad our communication was at first. I have no memory of that. The romantic side of me thinks that maybe this might be because when Kit fused, I got most of Kit. And because a big part of me was Kit and therefore never met Kit for the first time, it kind of overwrote any memory that I have of meeting her. It also could just be that I forgot. I don't have the best memory and I forget things all the time. So it could just be the easy answer of, I don't know, I forgot. I met my alters Jonathan and Jacob in a very different, unique way. Everybody else I met while I was awake, and I became aware of them when they fronted or were very close to the front and I could sort of sense their presence. But Jonathan and Jacob introduced themselves to me in a dream. At the time, I had chronic nightmares to the point where I was medicated to deal with it. And these nightmares would be so vivid that I would start losing a sense of what was a dream and what wasn't. Like, dreaming and reality would blend together, and that was awful. But every now and again, I would have a dream where I was with two, like, male comfort characters or content creators that I felt a lot of joy when watching. And we would do something simple like go for a picnic or play putt-putt golf. And they would hug me or cuddle me or shower me in platonic affection. And it was a really lovely reprieve from these terrible nightmares. Now, I had friends in my waking life that would shower me in platonic affection. Like, that wasn't an issue or something I was missing. But in these dreams, nothing bad had happened to me ever. And that wasn't a thing that I could say in real life. Obviously, I have a trauma disorder. So after I was aware I had DID and I had one of these dreams, I woke up and I was just overcome with the feeling that there was something about those two characters in my dream that were unique. It was different somehow. And I was like, were those alters? Is that possible? Did I just meet alters in my dream? Then I was like, no, that's surely impossible. I need to just calm down and stop looking for alters where there aren't any. And later that evening, I got a message from inside from Jacob saying, yes, you're right. We are alters and we are the ones who gave you that dream. And so that's how my communication started with them. I can't explain it. I've never read any reports about alters being able to control dreams or lucid dream when other alters can't. All I know is that I had these dreams. They said, yeah, it's me. I continued to have these dreams. And now that Jonathan fused and it's just Jacob, I have these same dreams, but there's only one male comfort character or content creator or whatever that is my super best friend who makes me feel good about life. Do with that what you will. In my waking life, I could communicate with Jonathan way easier than I could communicate with Jacob. Jonathan wasn't as instant and easy as communicating with Daniel was, but it wasn't incredibly difficult. And unlike with like Michelle, I could send and receive more than just emotions. We could send words back and forth to each other. Jacob was a little harder. Mostly I would have to reach him through Jonathan. Like it was like a game of telephone. Occasionally Jacob would interact with me directly, but at first that didn't happen very often. After that, I met some more littles. I met Karen, who was a big scary shadow monster at first and then turned into a little girl once she felt safer and more supported. I met Todd, who was completely nonverbal. We met Josh, who was a little scamp who loved to hide and play tricks. I met them all at different times. Ease of communication with them varied, but just like with Michelle, most of what we could send back and forth were emotion bumps. Mistletoe, going back to her, we had a complicated relationship. I can't even say how good communication was or how quickly it grew because mostly she purposefully ignored me, and when we were communicating, it was her screaming to me that we should not be alive. And that was stressful and awful, and I'm glad that part of my life is over. So as you can see, communication varied wildly, not only in ease of communication, but also the way we were able to communicate with each other in the beginning. As far as switching goes, it was really based off of emotion in the moment. Negative triggers, of course, would trigger us to the front. When our body was sick, Karen would often be forced to the front because that being sick is a big negative trigger for her, and that would bring her out. If we were tired, Michelle would front and force us to take a nap, which is normally fine, but some days you just really don't have time to take a nap, but that is what it is. Positive triggers also helped us a lot to be able to switch on purpose. Different activities, hobbies would trigger some of us forward. Making this channel also was a positive trigger for all of us across the board. So when someone knew it was their day to film, it was very easy for that alter to come forward to be able to film. In fact, I don't think switching was ever easier for us at that time than when we were filming these videos, because all of us enjoyed doing it so much. In addition to learning our positive triggers and learning how to use those to control our switching to a degree, we also had exercises to try to allow us to communicate in our head more effectively. We tried journaling, and that was actually pretty effective when we remembered to journal. Basically what I would do is I would sit down and I would write a journal entry and end that entry by asking either the system in general or specific alters a question. And then after writing that question, we would force a switch, and whoever was able to front would respond to that question. It was time consuming and exhausting and not always successful, but it was a really good start. We would often do like 2 days in a row where we did this journaling and then forget about it and not touch it for like 3 weeks, but it was good when we did it. We didn't ever leave notes for each other though. That felt really forced and awkward and almost like performative, and we didn't feel comfortable leaving notes for each other in the outside world. So I know a lot of other systems use that method to build communication, but we just didn't. We did do Tumblr get to know you quizzes though. You know, they would be like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite memory? With blah, blah, blah. And I would answer, and then I would focus and I would listen inside. And we didn't switch, but I would listen for everybody else's answer and we would record them all at once to practice being able to hear each other inside. We only did that like twice because we got fake claimed pretty quickly. People were like, oh my god, that's not how DID works. You can't just have everybody answer on this quiz all at once. So that kind of freaked us out, and so we stopped because we believed them and we were like, oh my god, we can't have done that. That's not how DID works. That was obviously, I don't know, and we were susceptible to online bullying at the time. I would also work really hard on trying to access the headspace. The headspace is basically a very vivid imaginary world where we can all live and interact with one another in our head when we're not fronting. And everybody else could access our headspace fully. It was this island. Everybody had a little house on the island. They could walk around, visit each other. It was a very easy place to access. For me, I could only access the beach. There was a little fire pit on the beach, and that was as far as I could get. Which is weird, right? Because if it's an imaginary place in my head, and it's my head, and most of my brain can access this place, why couldn't I? I don't have an answer for that. But I would close my eyes and lay down and focus really hard at sitting at this fire pit. And I would slowly, like, visualize around the circle and say, okay, who's sitting next to me? It was usually Daniel. Who's sitting next to Daniel? Who's, and until everybody was accounted for. And that also took a ridiculous amount of energy and effort. I was always tired and sometimes had a headache after these practices, but it helped me picture them. It helped us be able to reach out to each other. I was also able to kind of gauge their emotional and mental well-being at any given time based on who they were sitting next to. If the littles were closer to me, that meant that they were more excited about interacting in the outside world or more eager to at least pay attention to it. If they were at the back of the circle, farthest away from me, which is usually where Jonathan, like the fatherly figure of the system, sat, that meant they were feeling more vulnerable and more in need of that fatherly energy and to just be away from me that represented the outside world. The last tool that we used, and honestly the most effective when it came to getting to know one another, was talking to our friends. When we were talking inside the headspace, even if we could get words across, it was usually very short. So we had to be like succinct and straightforward as possible. There wasn't room for layers or nuance. But when someone would front and just talk to our friends, we could all pay attention to what they were saying in the body and listen to nuance and tone and complex ideas that they were having. And thank goodness we had wonderful friends who would sit and talk with us like this. Overall, compared to a lot of systems that I've talked to online, we established successful communication fairly quickly. The tools we used were definitely a part of that. Like, I think the variety of ways that we tried to connect to each other contributed to quickly growing communication. But I think the thing that allowed us to be most successful is that we were all in 110% with trying to reach out to one another. We would practice every single day, and that is absolutely what I credit on kind of the quick pace that we were able to be functionally multiple. When you're picking up any new skill at all, practice is what's going to make you feel more comfortable doing that skill. It's what's going to make it easier and come more naturally. The more you do it, the less effort you have to put into doing it because your body and your brain just fall into the normal pattern. So us all being on board to reach out to one another and practicing daily, that makes the difference. Hi, Editor Kim here. I just wanted to jump in really quick to add one point to what Wynn is saying. Being all in and like gung-ho about communication is really great and helps you progress really fast. However, it's possible that not all of the alters in the system are ready to just like jump into the deep end and go. I know that like myself, when I came out of dormancy and discovered I was a system, I was freaked the hell out and I was not ready to be like, hey, let's go take Tumblr quizzes together. It's important if there are parts that are scared or hesitant, give them space. Allow them to come to the system to be a part of that team on their own time. What helped me become more comfortable being a part of the team was when constantly letting me know they were very eager to meet me and to get to know me, but they wanted me to know that there was no pressure and I could come forward on my own time. I was given full agency, and because of that, I came around a lot faster than I would have otherwise if I felt like pressured or forced to do something that I wasn't ready to do. Having autonomy and like giving parts of yourself autonomy is really important, especially if not having autonomy was a part of the trauma that created the system in the first place. So I just wanted to tag that on, so nobody was like, well, Wynn said we had to go all in, and then creates a disaster for themselves. So I know that establishing communication can be scary, especially if there are alters in the system that you find scary. But the more you suppress that and push away and resist connection, the longer the period of disconnect and confusion is going to last. So even though every system's method of establishing communication is gonna look at least a little different from everybody else's, I feel confident in saying that commitment to communication is what should be in everybody's toolbox. But again, I'm not a professional, I'm just some guy on the internet, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. And if you are a DID or OSDD system and you have communication tools that I didn't mention, or you can expand upon some of the things that I did, please feel free to share those in the comments below. This could be a great space for brainstorming with other systems and helping new systems find methods that work for them. And if my comment section isn't the type of place that you want to be interacting with other systems, please consider visiting the sponsor of this channel, dissociative.cafe. It's a blog and forum made by systems for systems. It is a grounded, friendly, healing-first environment. I deep dived on this website when they reached out asking to sponsor us because I didn't want a sponsor that I didn't feel I could truly believe in, and I was blown away by how really just lovely the whole community was. You can find a link to the website in our description below. If you're wanting to interact with us more, please consider checking out our Patreon. We have really fun rewards like exclusive content and even monthly Zoom calls. And if you're already a patron, thank you so much for continuing to support our channel and help us do what we do. An extra big thank you to Disco Delirium, the Electric Circus, Shimrin, Sarah G, the Swamp System, Sarah Beers, and Will Mitchell. An extra big thank